Just talking musicals, musicals with you.
Hello, I'm Lesley Anne Knight and welcome to the Just Talking Musicals meetup, where I get to have a quick catch up with some of today's outstanding theatre professionals from the West End and Broadway. On the other side of the Zoom window today sits a music supervisor, arranger, conductor and music director who has achieved in his career what most of us mere mortals can only dream about. He's worked in TV, theatre and film, and as his phenomenal CV attests, he has massed credits globally for his work, with West End credits alone accounting for no less than 39 shows, including Company, Miss Saigon, Cabaret, Kiss Me Kate, 42nd Street, City of Angels, Anything Goes, Singing in the Rain, West Side Story and Guys and Dolls, working with a roll call of choreographers and directors that reads like a who's who of the theatre. It gives me great pleasure to welcome today's guest on the Just Talking Musicals meetup, Mr. Gareth Valentine. Good morning, Gareth.
Good morning. How are you, Lesley? All right?
Very good. Thank you very much. And thanks so much for coming on to the meetup today.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Right. Well, now, one of the first questions we have 7 questions on this meetup. And the first one, of course, is really pertinent to what we're all going through at the moment. It's July 2020 now. And we've all been in this COVID lockdown, which has affected the theatre dramatically in the last few months. And I was wondering what you were working on when the lockdown took place.
I was working on City of Angels in the West End, in fact, at the Gareth Theatre. And we were just a week from opening night when the theatre went dark. And it was quite something because we were in technical rehearsals and the entire creative team were there, some of the producers and of course the cast and everything. And it was clear that there were grave consequences for us, judging by what was said in the media. The rehearsals never really got to a start because you could feel the apprehension in the auditorium, and it really meant that we had to meet with each other in the auditorium and talk about this. It was then that Nika Burns, our producer, came into the auditorium, and it was then that Boris Johnson also made his speech. Do you remember that speech where he said something silly like, we're going to keep the theatres open, but it's up to the public as to whether or not they choose to go. I mean, it was one of those things. And when he made that announcement on the radio, that submission of what we were to expect, the sound department played the radio broadcast over the sound system. And it was the most somber thing. It was just like we were listening to the outbreak of war or something. I have in my hand a piece of paper, all that stuff. And people were kind of so crestfallen listening to this broadcast. And it became clear then that we couldn't continue. It really did. Nika Burns suggested that the company and orchestra did one more show so that we could video it, so that when we did come to put it back on its feet again, were we to do so, it would be that much easier. Yeah. But of course, I think people express some difficulties with that. One person said, his wife was expecting a child. Another said, we have a newborn. Another said, I have underlying health conditions. And so I think it was inevitable that we wouldn't play that night. And that's exactly what happened. And everybody left. I mean, everybody left that theatre. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
It's devastating, isn't it? And it was happening all around the West End.
That's right. In fact, a few people were invited to go into the theatre last week to collect their belongings and things, and they said it was like Miss Havisham's wedding. The costumes still on the hangers, the music still on the stands, the set, as though we were about to do tonight or something. Everything's still there in its place, and that's, to me, the saddest image, I think.
Oh, totally. And what do you think? What is going to happen to City of Angels? What's on the cards for it now?
Well, I mean, the producers are quite doubty about it, and so is Josie Rock, our director. I think who knows? I mean, we're in one of those who knows situations.
Yeah.
But a lot would hang on it. For example, we would need to know that the theatre was still available to us. We would need to know that the cast was still intact. We would need to know that the license was still could be extended. And then, of course, there are all the constraints and so on that you would expect a pandemic, which would affect the outgoings against revenue and all the rest of it. That would have to be all calculated and worked out. So, I mean, the obstacles are quite serious, aren't they? And many.
Yes. So what do you think? At the moment we've got word from the government that there are going to be measured steps and stages for starting the theatre up again. But what do you think, whether it's the government or whether it's other people who are involved in this big management of getting theatre alive again, what do you think can be done to help people and people who are just suffering from not working at the moment?
Yeah. I mean, to date, Dowden has given a pretty lackluster performance. There's some 5-point plan, which I understood is I mean, look, if we're talking about other countries, and I'll come back to the West End in a minute, but if we're talking about other countries, you have governments who immediately from March poured, without petition from the public or anyone else, poured money into the arts, all the arts. For example, in France, there a 12-month extension was given to all the to employment benefits for all the actors, performers, musicians, and technicians in the theatre and elsewhere. They had earlier this year opened what they call the National Centre for Music, and that has benefited again from a supplementary 50 million euro investment. So that's incredible. They gave a 7 billion euro fund set up from the months of March, April, and May. The Netherlands, a 70 million euro financial injection for the arts sector. Germany, this is amazing, 150 billion euros in aid, an aid package, which covers, again, all the arts. We're talking about museums, theatres, the whole spectrum. To date here, so far as I know, there has been nothing. Now, can you imagine you're a French actor and now you're going to have a year's salary. The salary that you will have had, you're going to have it. And that means that when the theatres reopen again, you're up and running. You're not driving a van for Sainsbury's or something. You're not living on the edge. You be able to sustain and to keep training and to keep your skills, intact.
But the revenue...
Here, I have... Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's just that the revenue alone that the theatre brings to this country is outstanding, and it always seems to be overlooked.
Yeah, I remember doing a talk to the civil service some time ago. I was invited to take part in, I think it was really so they wanted to explore unusual businesses and organisations which otherwise they will not have come into contact with, and so they invited me as a West End musical director to talk about the kind of work we do and the kind of revenue that what we do contributes to the overall economy. And I gave them the West End figures, which I can't remember now. And I remember there was a jaw-dropping gasp from all these 300 civil servants.
Yeah.
The weird thing that there were other people who were talking. One was the guy who manufactured wings for British Airways, and another one was the one who created and developed wind turbines, which is kind of set offshore on our coast and so on. And the revenue they expressed was nothing like what the theatre contributes to the overall economy. Nothing like it.
Isn't it 23 billion? I know overall it's.
I think that sounds feasible. Yes.
It's masses.
Yeah.
So going ahead, we can only hope, can't we? Because there's Broadway announced this week. It was in the New York Times that Broadway is likely to stay closed for the rest of this year, and they're going to try a staged reopening effectively from January next year, but it won't really start to show until March. But at least they've got some guidance, and they know how it's going to work. But I don't know if they've had any funding either. the figures that you
No,
took from Europe.
I mean, I'm meant to be in Chicago at the moment conducting 42nd Street at the Lyric Opera Theatre. And, you know, that kind of went down the toilet, of course, with a lot of other things. And I spoke to one of the people there yesterday, and they're in a really bad way because they're getting something like 100,000 new cases of COVID a day. They're in really serious trouble.
Yeah.
And I don't see that those airports under those conditions opening quite anytime soon. And of course, the reciprocal agreement with the EU means that no Americans are going to be coming to Europe, which is, again, I think it's 1/3 of the revenue to our theatres comes from, you know, Americans coming over here.
Yeah.
But it's a very serious and grave situation. But, you know, to date, I mean, today, even I scan the news every morning, there's nothing from our moribund, you know, arts minister, nothing, a 5-point plan, which is meaningless.
Yeah.
When it's going to start? How much are you going to inject? Are you going to do anything at all?
Yeah. Yes, you've got to have more than a fluffy plan. You've got dates. You know, there's got to be a plan, hasn't there?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, as we've got to move on through our questions, the subject, of course, does get lighter. And one of the things I really want to know of all the people that come on the meetup is you've been involved in so many shows. What's your favourite show that you've been involved in, or one that inspired you of all time?
Spider Woman. Or I think the German production was Das Küssen der Spinnenfrau.
Oh, yeah.
Which somebody told me they did over there. And I thought it sounded great. Das Küssen der Spinnenfrau. And it was at the Shaftesbury Theatre in 1992. And it was a time of joy and despair for me. It was joy because I was working with the Broadway company, pre-Broadway. Don't forget, they brought it here before they opened, I forget, the Broadhurst Theatre, that's right. And so I got to meet Hal Prince. John Kander, I've known for many years since then, or before then. John Kander, Chita Rivera, Gareth Stravinsky, the Wayward producer. And at the same time, my partner of 7 years, Michael, was dying of AIDS. And of course, this is a time when there was no therapies or anything like that. And so I would spend my days at the St. Bart's Hospital with Michael, who was dying and died 11 months later. And it's in the evenings or matinees, I'd be conducting that show. And it was that show, going in to do that show, which gave me equilibrium.
Yeah.
And Chita Rivera understood my circumstances, and so did the producers, and they were very, very good at supporting me. But the show itself is political, of course. It's in some undefined country in Latin America, and of course it centers the story around, as does the film, about these two political prisoners. And I call it John's opera because the score is diverse and it just beautifully constructed. To work with that cast, I'm telling you, was amazing. All I can say is I've never seen anything quite like it, because every show, the energy of every show and the concentration and the commitment was like a first night.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it ever since. Every show was like a first night.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And I remember Chita coming down to sing the title song, you know, in the web, and she kind of walked down stage, and the moon grows dimmer, and she'd come down, and just at the crescendo of the music, she'd say, "Oh, I can see you there on the screen, conductor. You look so sexy." and I'd look up at her and she'd give me a wink every night. Oh, it was just fabulous. I mean, it was just great. And to see this, she, as to quote Rob Marshall, who was the choreographer of that show, you know, she's the grand dame of Broadway, isn't she? You know?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, unrivaled in her way. And so that was great. And I saw, you know, end of every show, Chita's dressing room, a glass of tequila, which I hated.
Tequila.
but I hate tequila, but anyway, I drank tequila and we just chat. And I remember I'm going off piece now, but when I was in Chicago, she did a stint in Chicago in London. She came, and her dressing room was across the whole corridor from mine. We kept our doors open, and she'd keep coming into the room, and we'd make up smutty songs at the piano in the half-hour call, and we tried to out-smut each other, and she always won.
Oh, I think that's amazing. My goodness, because you sort of hear what a name that is internationally renowned, like Chita Rivera, and you wonder what she's like.
I'll tell you the story, because when we were at the Shaftesbury Theatre, we started our first technical rehearsal, and John Kander he came down and said, "Come on, you've got to meet Chita." So he took my hand, and sitting there was Terence McNally, the book writer, and Fred Ebb and Hal Prince and Garth Drabinsky, and Chita in what we call the Big Bird outfit, "Gimme Love, Gimme Love." She sings in the cage. She was sitting there like Big Bird, and John said, "Chita, this is Gareth Valentine, your MD. Gareth, this is Chita Rivera." And I took her hand, and she said, "Oh," said, "I've heard all about you. You're a smutty little boy, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Can I just say you look so different than in those Tarzan movies?" And she laughed as she did, and she got the gag. And from that moment, we got on like a house on fire, and we've been great friends ever since.
The extraordinary thing is the lineup of people that you were working with in the production team there, that reads like a who's who, doesn't it? Alone, Hal Prince, Fred, John Kander. I mean,
one of my abiding memories, when the American Theatre League were doing a tribute for Chita Rivera. And it was at where was it? It was at the Pierre Hotel on Fifth Avenue, and it was a big event, and they wanted me to come as a surprise guest. So John said, "Okay, come and stay with me." So I stayed in John's house, and I'll never forget. I went to a rehearsal, and it was coming up to Christmas. And in this rehearsal would be Arthur and Anne Reinking and B.B. Newirth and Cy Coleman and the Mayor of New York. I mean, everybody, if a bomb had gone off, that would be the end of Broadway. And it was so exciting. And I remember picking me and John up, and in the limo was Fred. And so I sat in the back of the limo, between Kander and Ebb. And the limo went from 71st, West 71st Street through Central Park, and it was snowing, deep, thick snow.
Oh.
And I was just so charmed. And I thought, and I never forgot that. I'm sitting between them in a limo, going through Central Park for a rehearsal for a Chita Rivera tribute. And it's snowing, it was just magical. And all Fred was crack gags the whole way. I mean, he was quite something crack, and I cracked gags, and yeah.
It's moments like that you think that when you were a young musician studying and singing, that you could never have imagined in all your wildest dreams that it would take you to a point like that in your career where you would actually meet and work with these people.
No, it's true. I mean, I was a student at the Royal College of Music. Now, don't forget, this is 1975 to 79. In those days, they were very conservative established. Royal Academy now, of course, has a musical theatre course. Well, inconceivable, and I think in the Royal College of Music, probably inconceivable still for them. So mine, I didn't know where I was going. I mean, I knew it would be music Spain. So by which I mean, I perhaps wanted to be a singer, an opera singer. And then I graduated the Royal College of Music, and then I did a year as a répétiteur at the opera school. And then I did, because my parents thought, look, you've got to have something to fall back on. I therefore did my teacher training at the Institute of Education, and then a further probationary year at Norwood Girls' School.
Okay.
So I had a choir going at the school, and I remember taking them to Capital Radio to sing show tunes. And those kids now sometimes talk to me on Facebook, and they're all kind of grown up with families and everything, and say, "Oh, sir, we fancied you. when you're at school, we really fancied you, sir. It's quite.
It may touch an impact on them. All these, I suppose, these avenues that come along that we go down when we're on our way, they all serve later, don't they? If you keep going
They
on.
do, and I'm glad I didn't. There's lots to do. Just go. I mean, they do musical director courses now and then go straight into the theatre. But I'm glad I did education. I'm glad I worked with children. I'm glad I worked with a different mindset. In other words, with people who work in education. And I think that's wonderful. I love the world outside musical theatre a lot. I love politics. I love philosophy. I love the study of religion. I love all arts, walking, reading. That's how one learns and grows. And I see some people who it's all and only musical theatre, and I think that's a terrible indictment.
Yes, it's
people too. But everything feeds on everything else.
Yes, it makes it richer, doesn't it? And then makes it whole. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Now, your next question, Mr. Valentine, is who's your favourite artist yesterday and today?
Now, does this cover? The dramatic arts, not necessarily musical theatre, or
I suppose for us, because it's just talking musicals, I suppose I should give you the strict and narrow review. It should be musical theatre and
I'm going to do
film music.
Okay, I'm going to do the broader one first, just because I'm going to be naughty and go there for a minute. But my favourite performer, actor of all time, is Spencer Tracy.
Okay.
But if you're asking me about musical theatre, I think, again, it has to be Chita Rivera, because she casts a spell. When we did Kiss the Spider Woman, when we did Chicago, she led that company by example. She was incredibly industrious. She was diligent, exigent in the way she approached everything. And very interestingly, and significant, she would always have her dressing room door open onto the corridor so that anybody could come in. And all she would have is a slash curtain so that she could see people going by. And also they could see her. And this, if she was getting changed, she would have modesty, what they call a modesty shield, she would talk as she was getting, but that was the thing. So she would call people in. Now, how many men? And that's the thing. She wanted to see who was passing the room, and everybody you didn't have to knock. You said, "Chita, come in." It was like that, and that's a significant. That's part of who she is. Liberal, all embracing, and of course the company adored her. And if you adore someone, it means that you'll work for them, won't you? You'll do anything to help them.
But that's how you become the theatre family, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, and if you have somebody who's removed, there is going to be a different atmosphere altogether, isn't there? Yeah.
So it was that was off stage, but of course on stage she was dynamite.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about somebody. I don't know how old she was then, but and she's only still a young slip of a thing now, but she would dance around that stage. And again, like I said, it was like an opening night. She used to throw herself around that stage, and every show, and she never took a show off, by the way, ever. Not on Broadhurst, not in the Shaftesbury Theatre either, and nor when she came to the Adelphi Theatre, old school. She would go on and do that show come hell or high water.
How long did it run in the West End?
Oh, how long did they do? Oh, isn't that awful? I should know. I think it was probably about 3 or 4 months. And then B.B. Newworth took over the role, and then a British cast took over, and I think it did another 3 months. Is that right? Something like that. Oh God, my memory. Yeah.
But that's true professional, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah. And then it went to Broadway, and I remember the top of Act 2. It would start off stage. The Spider Woman would sing off stage after the entr'acte, and the moon grows dimmer. And so I would conduct her in the camera as she sort of watched me off stage. And I used to do little tricks like I shouldn't say things like this. I used to do things like conduct with a banana, or I'd have false breasts, or it was some little thing like that. Oh my God, it's so unprofessional. I should have never worked again. But anyway, but she loved it. She loved it. And all the company used to come round her. She sang this to see what I'd do next. Well, anyway, it went to the Broadhurst Theatre. And I went over to New York, and one of the guys in the company, Gary Schwartz, said, "Oh, Ted Sperling is conducting, and you should get." She doesn't know you're here. He should conduct for the entr'acte, and then during that, you should just step onto the podium and conduct her. And that's what happened. And I got on the podium, and the orchestra going, "What? Who's this? Who's this guy? What's this?" And the moon, and I could hear the smile in the voice, you know. And then I went into the wings for Act 2, and she's behind one of the flats doing the Russian scene, and she's shaking her fist at me. And then she said to me, "How long are you here for?" I said, "Oh, a couple of weeks." She said, "Okay, look, I want to see you after the show. Tell he's got the car outside to take you around New York and come back in a couple of hours' time." So many stories, you know. She said, "Look, there's a birthday party on Broadway, and I want you to meet a special friend of mine. So make sure that you're there Saturday night, such and such an address." And I went to this address, and the door opened, and it was opened by Liza Minnelli. Liza Minnelli. It was a birthday party. I forget whose. Was it Armando, which was Chita's brother? I can't remember.
Okay.
But I mean, so I just spent the night just talking to Chita and Liza Minnelli. And I remember singing a silly song, and oh God, it was just one of those crazy, crazy nights. It was Halloween, as I remember.
Oh, what a night.
That was the special friend that she wanted to meet, you know, so yeah. And I remember I was singing, I ended up I forget how, I think we all got a bit pissed, and I ended up on my knees singing Welsh folk songs to Liza, and she was enthralled.
She loved
What the hell is that?
Oh, what a terrific! I mean, how did you react when she opened the door?
Well, the first thing I thought was, familiar. Have we worked together? That first kind of, oh God, you're familiar. I know you from somewhere. It's just like, I didn't calculate. You know, my brain didn't. And then, anyway, it was such a great night. In fact, it was a great. And then I went out to the gay bars for Halloween, which is quite something. So it was one of those very memorable times.
Nice big nights. Right. Our next up question is Broadway All West End.
Yeah. Well, it's quite a nebulous thing. Are you talking about to watch, or to participate in, or both?
I suppose it's both. It's what you feel about both. I mean, if somebody asked me, I know where I'd go with that, because obviously I think if you love the theatre, you're going to love both, aren't you? But is there one that tips the scales for you?
Well, I suppose, oh God, isn't this is, I mean, I suppose for me, the West End, because it's not just musicals, it's plays, and I love going to see plays.
Yeah.
And we do plays better than anyone in the world. We are about the word. We have wonderful actors here, and unrivaled, I think, in many cases. But the interesting thing about Broadway is that they send so much stuff over here. We get their imports, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, if you think about, I don't know what percentage of imports there are in the West End, but it must be on the greater part of musical theatre shows. And we don't send so much over there. That's interesting in itself. But I have been to 3 Broadway shows which got great reviews and left in the interval. I've had that too, you know, where the hype never really lived up to it. And I've seen performances, bad performances, terribly bad performances. One particular one, I just left in the, and then one I went to, which I'm not naming. You see, I'm being prudent, where the opening number was so ghastly. I thought, if that's your opening number, what's the rest of it's going to be like? I mean, if you can't hit me over the head with an opening number, it's finished. That's it. So I left. No.
Do you sometimes think?
So,
Do you sometimes feel like I've had this feeling before, and I thought, is it me? Is it because I've had a long day and I'm just not in the right mood for this? But you find that all through the first act, you're going, no, okay, now come on, I've got to like this. It's had great reviews. Why don't I like it? And then that feeling, that awful feeling when should you leave in the interval, and when you do, it's like you feel cheated, and you don't want to let them down, but you think, life's too short. It just hits you, doesn't it?
yes, I think it's the thing about excellence equals success. Well, it doesn't. Of course, something can be successful. I mean, McDonald's is the biggest selling, food outlet in the world. The Sun is the biggest selling newspaper. Jeffrey Archer novels sell more than any other. I mean, therefore they are successful, hugely successful. Are they excellent? I'll let you be the judge of that.
Yeah, nice one. I like that. Now, so that's answered that question. So now where are we? Oh, we are on our final question, Mr. Valentine. If you were to write a book about your life up to now, what would the title be? And what would your favourite chapter be?
It would be Take No Prisoners, by which I mean, go for it, live dangerously in a rehearsal room, think laterally, challenge the director nicely, get the best out of people, and make people laugh, make the fun in the rehearsal. I say to young musical directors who work with me, if you don't have fun, you will not be at your best. You've got to have fun. Earnestness in a rehearsal room for musical theatre is a killer. I've seen it happen. I've seen directors come into those rehearsal rooms, and the only way I can describe the atmosphere in that rehearsal is joyless. Could you imagine? So you're going in, okay, if you want joyless, go into catering. There's plenty of joylessness there, or into retail. But in the saloon, there must be joy, there must be happiness, there must be fun. Of course, it's leavened with seriousness and with gravity. It has to be. But actors and musicians, we're animals who like to enjoy what they do. And so fun is a big, big part of it. Anyone who's worked with me will tell you, that's my cardinal rule. And it's never failed me, never.
You get the most out of people if they're relaxed and happy, don't you?
That's right. And laughter is a great thing.
Yeah.
Often if I feel tension in a rehearsal, I'll do something funny, or I'll say something funny and make people crack up. And all of a sudden now everybody's working together again. Yeah. Same in an orchestra pit. If you think about musicians, they're in the pit, they're playing that thing, churning out over and over and over and over and over. What keeps them fresh is fun. I don't mean being, Ronald McDonald. I don't mean that, but I mean, making people smile, giving them a laugh, making them feel that they want to be in that.
Yeah. And what would your favourite chapter in that book be?
I think it would have to be boring. It's the same answer. It's the Spider Woman, because it just jumps out from another experience I had.
Yeah.
Working with an all-American cast and team. So I think I was the only Brit there. I suppose I was. And how they worked. And taking my first vocal call during their reviews, they said, okay, come on, we'll give them so I'm giving a call to the Broadway, and I'm very young. And I said, I love the sound you make. I said, the only word I come up to describe the sound is, and I thought, oh, I said, expensive. And they all laughed. They were paid so much money. That town was expensive. Perhaps I should have said expensive. But the they made was, I just wish you could have been next to me, Lesley, on the podium during the finale of Act 2 or Act 1, Gimme Love. I mean, the free thrill. The band was hot, you know.
Yeah.
It was just great. Yeah.
I love those moments in the theatre. I mean, I know this is going off to tangent, but I suppose the closest I've ever come as an audience member to absolute sensational magic in the theatre was watching Guys and Dolls at the National in 1981. Yeah. I saw it 6 times, standing room only. I was a student. And the Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat. I've talked to Richard Eyre about this, and he said he would take his daughters to the matinee on a Saturday. He'd say to them, "What do you want to do today?" And they go, "Dad, can we go and watch the second half of Guys and Dolls this afternoon and just watch the way everybody goes wild?" Because of course it was all rehearsed, that the encores at Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat. But for me, that the memory, and it was such a long time ago, but the memory and the electricity that you can get in an excited theatre, and the fact that you do it, as you say, that power and that energy stays every single performance. It's memorable, it's magic, and that's what the theatre is about. That's what live theatre is absolutely all about, isn't it?
Speaking of the National Theatre, did you ever see Trevor Nunn's production of Anything Goes?
No, I didn't.
It was a legendary production, and we had the same thing at the end of Act 1. Stephen Mear, the venerable Stephen Mear, he put together this, well, we put together, because I'm a music, but we put together this number, which was like a 8-minute knockout number that just builded and builded and builded until the audience couldn't stand it. And then they gave them something else, and they couldn't stand that, and then you bash them up there with something. It was carefully structured. So by the end, the entire audience was on its feet from preview 1. I remember Trevor Nunn coming up to the ship, because the band was on a ship at the top of the ship, and he came running onto the stage. The auditorium, they're standing up there. He was so excited. And when we did the run at precisely, I mean, I think it started at 2 o'clock the matinee, so at precisely 20 minutes past 3 or whatever it was, the entire administration from the National Theatre would run down to the auditorium and stand at the back, and I would look behind, and there'd be about 60 people there, all standing, and they would come every single show to see that number.
I mean, that's feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was, and you know, and then we went into the Drury Lane, and that was great.
Yeah.
And I remember the Queen coming. Oh, this is so funny, because okay, so Queen and Prince Philip and the Duke and Duchess of Kent will be in the royal box, and therefore, but because it's an informal visit, there will be no national anthem, and so, you know, the sniffer dogs before she comes, and all the kind of security, the SAS people are there, and the audience come in, and of course there's a frisson because the royal box is lit up, but they don't know why. And unannounced, the Queen and her party come into the royal box, and of course they're, oh my God, it's the Queen, it's the Queen. You know, it's like, I think it was I forget whether it was a matinee or evening show. Anyway, the Queen was in, so the cast are very excited. And so anyway, I start the overture, tempo, and the entire audience stood on their feet.
Oh no!
And we started the overture, and the Queen stood up thinking, oh my God, there's an error here. And then they all sat down again, and there was a complete, everybody belly laughed in the theatre. Well, it was a great way to start the show, because it was just so, oh God, I'll never forget that.
Oh, how lovely. Yes, never did you not want a drum roll to be somewhere. Oh, Gareth, that's most fantastic.
I mean, if the Queen's sitting there and you hear brrrr, it's an instinctive thing, isn't it?
Yes.
But then the next thing you hear is Just,
Oh, what a wonderful memory. That's wonderful. Gareth, thank you so much for meeting me on the meetup today. I'm so pleased that we got to do this chat, because we had some technical glitches along the way, and it's meant all the more to me that we've been able to do this today. So thank you so much.
really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful. And hopefully we'll get to meet up in person and do an even bigger interview in person next year. I would love that.
A socially distanced beer, that would be great.
Wouldn't it
Yeah.
be wonderful? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very, very much. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, Gareth Valentine. Bye-bye.
Just talking musicals with you.